Good morning, and thank you very much for joining us. I am Yori Folani. We're in the transition mode. You know, that's about the only thing, the biggest thing on the political horizon now. And yesterday, the last Council of State meeting under President Goodluck Ebele Jonathan. Everybody was there. Everybody who should be there was there, and it was interesting. And one of the more visible things that they did was to a sort of a transition program. By now you have it, 4 main compartments between now and then with specific dates. First of all, a Muslim prayer, then a Christian prayer, then a tour of the villa on the eve of the handover, a tour of the villa and handover to the incoming president, and then of course the day after, on the 29th, the inauguration proper. Okay, we'll talk about that. And the other thing that came out was the appointment, the confirmation of the substantive appointment of the new Inspector General of Police, and something of an insight into why the former one got the boot. Just one word, sort of an explanation: indiscipline within the force. Lord knows what that means. Okay, let me quickly tell you about my guests. First of all, we got Dr. Augustine Agugua, Department of Sociology, University of Lagos. Thank you very much for coming on.
It's my pleasure.
Indeed.
Thank you.
And it's always our pleasure. Friend of the house, Bala Zaka, is an oil and gas expert. I don't know how much of that we'll be talking about today, but not to worry. He's also a public affairs analyst. Thank you very much, Bala, for coming on.
Thank you. Thank you.
Now, the mood of the nation, look at the mood of the nation. We're sort of in an anticipatory mood. And then, what do you think of the mood of the last Council of State meeting? Because just about everybody was there. All the governors. Amechi is a sitting governor. There was this interesting meeting between the president and Amechi. Body language. What can you say from no more than just the television, papers, and pictures that you've seen?
To be honest, apart from the negative punctuation of the general environment within Nigeria by this lack of petrol, and this attendance fuel subsidy thing, I think politically, the psyche of Nigerians is actually a happy psyche today. Politically, Nigerians are in a positive mood. And the reasons are very simple. A lot of people thought Nigeria is supposed to be in turmoil today.
Yes. Many
people expected balkanization and so many distractions. Even when you look at the head speeches, it was connoting something, danger for Nigeria. So at that level, it's very positive. And somehow, somewhere, like many people are saying, people are now beginning to actually get confused, about the character of Mr. President. And that's the outgoing president. It's becoming
President
clear.
Jonathan.
Yes, it's becoming clear because many people actually said, President Jonathan is actually a good man. Maybe he had not the right lieutenants. Because from the conceding of defeat, he basically prepared the political soil of peace.
Yes.
And wanted to hand that over, for the incoming president to plant the seed of growth and development. And that's what we are really seeing.
And Augustine, part of that was misunderstood. Remember the whole furor when we was talk about a dinner, a handover, and everyone said, don't no dinner, don't eat any dinner. Yeah. Remember what happened to X, Z, and Y, and Z. But the point he made that, Mr. President, President Jonathan, there are those who see him as a nice guy, but then Mr. President himself did say that he felt he was a captive while in office. That speaks volumes, doesn't it?
And one can really write it. This is out of that statement. And to a reasonable extent, it's beyond the particular, what you regard as the peculiar circumstances surrounding the emergence of President Jonathan and perhaps the 6 years he actually spent at Ashrok. Most times, public officers, if they want to be true to their calling, as it has to do with their status and roles in whatever positions they occupy, you are there as a captive in the real sense of the word. Because definitely there is this distinction.
Wait a minute, Augustine. With due respect, would you describe Obasanjo as a captive in his time?
That's exactly one thing I would rather not like to comment on so much, but whether he likes it or not, President Obasanjo, or former President Obasanjo, while he was at Ashurok, and when he was in public glare, can never be seen to be the same kind of person you meet when you go to Otta Farm. That is one thing to it. And in that sense, definitely, once you say that you are in public service and you're before the public glare, you are a captive of what you might regard as people's expectations, different from your own personal inclinations.
Okay.
Now, if you now narrow it to President Jonathan, to me, you can't actually discuss the politics of the day outside what at a point came on board as the concept of the cabal. To a reasonable extent, I didn't see President Jonathan at the point of his emergence as being part of the political, what you might regard as now cabal of Nigeria that determines and defines what should be and what shouldn't be. It's to that extent, I can now agree with him. We can now actually narrow it down to his own perspective. I was a captive, and he was really dancing out, to a reasonable extent, the dictates of some of those people that met him. That's why somehow my friend was making reference to the fact that some people are getting confused as to the person of Jonathan.
Yes.
Whether was really, are we really right in saying some of the things we are saying about him? Were we actually proper in our perspectives? Is this actually the man we were vilifying to the extent we did? Yeah. To the extent he was the captive, he was not just President Jonathan as an individual. He was representing a group.
Okay.
And it's that group that actually projected and manifested in some of the things he did, which
but
some
then
of us
the buck stops on the president's
exactly,
desk.
sure.
So whatever was going on back office, behind the scenes,
sure.
It's still President Jonathan. Okay, at least Nigerians now have what they want via the polls. They have the opportunity for a change, and that's where General Muhammadu Buhari, people will, these are acronyms. I think GMB is settling down to be his. It used to be GEJ and OBJ. So we just have these acronyms that we come up with. So in relation to the victory of GMB at the polls, even the other side, those that didn't vote for him, it still rankles. It would appear to still rankle a bit, going by some of the comments you hear. In fact, you almost begin to wonder, isn't the election over? Why are these kind of things still going on? But in due course, people will come around, right? Is that your hope or your thought? People will come around so that everybody's on the same page. The election is over.
Well, generally, there is a principle in physics we call the principle of resonance. Resonance simply means I will generate my own sound. You will generate your own sound, but we will have a meeting point or congruency, and we will come up with one sound. I don't want to give an example with a husband, a guy and a female and whatever. But that's the direction Nigeria is heading towards now. But the good thing is Nigeria is heading towards that direction for the positive reasons. And Nigeria is actually heading towards the positive direction. Because it's just getting to some point, and some people are just saying, okay, for the sake of Nigeria, in the interest of national unity, right, GMB is now the next president. Let's just support him. Everybody is just feeling if the roads will be made better, if we are going to reduce medical tourism, right, if we are going to reduce capital flight from education, if we are going to reduce gridlocks, due to tankers coming from Kauranamoda, from Sokoto, to everywhere coming into Lagos just to carry out petroleum product, and at the end, all of them will be falling on the roadside, destroying our roads. Because if all we need to do is to just give this new dispensation, or imagine dispensation, a support for a better Nigeria, so be it. That's something that we've noticed. And you see, last Sunday also, Mr. President, attended a religious service, and he made some speeches, and in the process, to me personally, people said he said his lieutenants are likely to be persecuted. To me, I'm telling you, that was an emotional speech. But because we are not the creators of English language, my belief is that was purely technical semantics. Mr. President probably meant there is every likelihood that my lieutenants may be called upon to give clarifications, some accounts or accountabilities, which is good for the development of any country.
Well, in that case, would it be semantics as a sort of an unintended misspeak?
Exactly. That's in terms of the words.
Yes, in terms of the words, because persecution as opposed to please provide a bit of clarification. They're not the same thing. The two are not the same thing.
They are not.
So, but he had said that. In any case, Buhari has indicated, but even if he didn't indicate, we're going to take it for granted, that, you know, once, 1 minute after he's been handed over to, he becomes the president of Nigeria.
Of course.
Even the president of those who didn't vote for him.
Exactly.
And certainly there will be no punitive policies just because you didn't vote for him. But as I said, it still rankles. People want to win, and he didn't win. You can see all the hate speeches. You can see all the doubts. You can see all the, especially when people are talking about the obvious, that, look, it took us 16 years to get into this situation, and it's not going to disappear overnight. And suddenly the other side is saying, aha, it is now that you know. Please, we don't want to hear. Go ahead and just do it.
And it's to that extent she might really somehow give room for appreciating the statement of the president, that it might not necessarily have been a kind of a mischance or misspeak or mistake.
Okay.
It was really intended.
You think?
In my own understanding. Because
that whole matter about, because I don't know about, wait, I beg your pardon, sir. When you say you are more inclined to their position that, Mr. President, you could give full value, full weight to every word he said in that particular statement, that perhaps the word persecuted was intended. Well, I would want to sort of beg to disagree. I don't know. You know, you're entirely entitled, but I'm just wondering if who has time for persecution? There's so much work to be done.
He said he's left himself and his lieutenants. And when we are now talking about persecution, it might not really have to do with the man, General Muhammad Buhari. Buhari will be so busy.
That word persecution seems to be
he will be so busy
when we're talking about
duties
moving
as a president
onto a change.
It sounds a bit pessimistic and negative.
Yeah, let's take it from that angle.
Okay.
But I also want them to actually take it in its full glare, as it has to do with its full meaning, and now work towards restitution. Okay. Let's, you know, good at to a reasonable extent, I don't see President John somebody who carries himself as a know-it-all person, somebody that is highly righteous and all whatnot, or above boss. You know, I love one of his statements whereby he admitted to the fact that, on one occasion where he admitted to the fact that he and his generation or group had failed Nigerians. And in that sense, he expects some recriminations from the public. He expects, because all the hate speeches that actually colored and laced the electioneering period, it's not something we just sweep under the carpet overnight. People will be looking at how, for instance, the fuel situation will improve overnight, how issues that has to do with employment and unemployment will be tackled, how things that has to do with power generation, issues that has to do with education, then the issue of what do you call it, things on the area of foreign reserves and all whatnot. As the incoming president will be working on all these things. Not necessarily from the government of the day, but from point of view of side comments. Those comments that might be coming from the sides in the next 6 months. Those issues can be related to issues of persecution, and it's not peculiar to him. It's something that even in the realm of religion, you see Jesus Christ telling his disciples that you should prepare for what? Persecution as part of it.
Okay. But there is also the other sort of, if you want, the idealistic wish, perhaps, of, look, APC is arriving on the platform and indeed mantra of change.
Exactly.
And really, shouldn't we just turn over a fresh page and then begin to work? And some of the things that Augustine said that I like is that it's like you have to make a pitch to the people. And Buhari has said this before.
Sure.
That you have to make a pitch to the people. They must buy your pitch.
Exactly.
And then they will follow you. In fact, one of my favorite quotes from Buhari, which I paraphrase, is that if the Nigerian feels that you are impeding in one way or the other his rights, you will not know peace.
Definitely.
You've got to assure him that his interests, his rights are taken care of before you can get ahead.
Exactly.
Now, just that sentence, that sentence sort of explains who Buhari says he is.
Exactly.
And you see, this time around, you are now talking about what I can describe as differentiation in the persona of leaders and their leadership approaches. You know, that is what you will do, because when you look at like we mentioned now, there is this saying that no matter how visionary a leader is, if you don't have supportive lieutenants, you are likely not to succeed with your own vision.
That's right.
Right. So let's just go back a bit. Just look at GMB coming in, right? Let's also have Jonathan in the center and go back a bit to somebody like Obasanjo. I want to believe that Jonathan wanted to have a team, right? But when you want to have a team as a leader, some level of assertion sometimes is necessary. And that's where the differentiation in the qualities of leaders come in. In the days of somebody like Obasanjo, I mean, it was very, very clear. Obasanjo will want you as part of his team, but sometimes Obasanjo will get out of his way, even in public, to tell you that if you don't, this thing, you got it wrong, even though I wanted us to work as a team. Because we remember in the days of late Bola Ige, when Bola Ige said, was it electricity? He said we were going to get in a given month. Obasanjo said, no, don't expect it. But I didn't really see that level of firepower to publicly disapprove or contradict a fellow lieutenant in the days of Jonathan. Jonathan was more on the mild side. Maybe he calls his lieutenants, you know, in the closet and advises them and warns them, I don't know. But also, when you see the signs now from GMB, the signs from GMB are likely to be like almost close to that of what Obasanjo. We will work as a team, but please, in the interest of Nigeria, don't deviate.
You know, you're so right. Augustine, in this aspect, GMB coming on board, you know, there have been all sorts of co-travelers. You know, everybody, because at the time, it hadn't crystallized into victory yet, and they didn't know. And so many people, volunteers, politicians, strategists, the whole gamut were there. And they must have had pretty decent sort of access to the man. Sure. But following the first transition, which is the first transition from candidate to president-elect, I imagine that whole circle of people having access would have changed. And only Lord knows what more is going to happen once the man finally sits at his desk. We have an indication. We care to speculate about how you think Buhari might be, because we've heard about Obasanjo in his time. We had GEJ. Care to speculate about a President Buhari when the time comes for him to be called?
To a reasonable extent, as we are getting to the tail end of GEJ's administration, I think to a reasonable extent that was the kind of person Nigeria needed the period Jonathan ruled and is about to leave.
Well, I didn't
because
understand.
there was a
Nigeria needed Jonathan.
Nigeria needed Jonathan
for the period he was in charge.
Exactly, his kind of personality disposition. Because Nigeria, at a point, at a time in the history of our political, development, was almost getting to the point of being heated up to the brims. A very, very assertive and perhaps brash personality in the likes of former President Obasanjo, beyond 2007, we have blown up this country. I think we needed the cooling effect of Yar'Adua and Jonathan, up to the point that towards the tail end of his administration, we are now seeing something which even General Muhammadu Buhari himself is very much appreciative of, and I really appreciate Buhari for that disposition, because in Buhari, to a reasonable extent, we are now focusing on him. We don't need to speculate. I might have been a student, but I was there very wary of his presence as a former military head of state. This is somebody that is assertive, carries himself as aplomb, that is very focused, a strict disciplinarian, rigidly inclined towards what he believes in, and
there's a whole aura of assurance about him.
That is exactly where I'm heading to.
There's a whole aura of assurance.
From point
no sort of,
view,
sort of timid testing of the waters.
That has to do with prebendal attitude. He doesn't have it. And it is very, very good for this country at this point because, yes, APC adopted the concept of change as a kind of phrase that's defined what they want to achieve, not just for themselves, but for the nation. And it really kind of well with the expectations of the generality of the Nigerian populace. That actually also dovetails into what General Muhammad Buhari represents as an individual. Because just like my friend and colleague pointed out here, a tree can never make a forest. But I can also tell you, it's just like when you watch the film Troy, they say, yes, you might have soldiers, but a single general can turn the tide of a nation's history. And that's exactly what I see.
And that's what people,
General
Muhammadu Buhari
coming to impact
and that
on
is
the
what
Nigerian
people
situation.
Expect. So
exactly.
the expectation is high.
Very high.
And on a personal level, he'll probably deliver. But when it now comes to where people are talking now is the issues, the challenges on the ground you talked about, or you talked about education, you talked about, the economy. This is where people are really going to see the mettle of Buhari.
And
assurance is one thing.
And the metal is really coming very hot because there are speculations, but there is something I've just noticed, or there are a couple of events or happenings, that I experienced, between Buhari and probably his political party and the approach they have for Nigeria. And I tell you, if they hold on to that, it's going to be very, very great. One thing I found out is this. It seems Buhari is, though he recently said, hey, take it easy, Nigerians, but it also appears as if he's actually he is in hurry to instill and present a practical template of discipline, But it's all started also, and it's also looking as if he's truly a converted Democrat. And let me explain. There was a time we had that, an activity was taking place around GMB, right? And a particular media station went there, but probably the accreditation or something didn't go on well. And some people within his camp or whatever said, no, you didn't get A, B, C, D right, so stay up. Before we knew what was happening, the party now, as a team now, said, no, this shouldn't happen, let's adjust. And I didn't hear GMB complain or his team complain. That simply means anything that has to do with national interest, even if they get it wrong and there is a correction from a party, which we will expect also with time, let there be correction from totality of Nigerians, they will take it. They will
let it be.
Exactly. Then there was another incident again we had happen, They got to probably a traffic light. And it seems he told his convoy, when you get to a traffic light, respect it. But somebody who is a security expert again said, as a national leader, it also has security implications for the country. For a number one or our great leaders to get to those places. We always have traitors and saboteurs.
Obey traffic lights.
Yes, it's good to obey, but it also can be a trap.
So again, they probably have to consider all of these kind of things.
Exactly. So,
you're very right.
No, because
I hear you. But he mentioned that incident with AIT and all of that, and was something that was said, and then a retraction of it. Now this reminds me of the reporter from Deutsche Welle. You probably recall that story, where he was escorted out of the villa, his accreditation allegedly withdrawn simply for asking difficult questions of a visiting head of state. And now, there hasn't been the same furore that we had when Buhari, one of Buhari's aides, is reported to have said, look, Mr. AIT, go away. As you said, the party came back and said, we're not too sure about that. Let every Nigerian journalist have access. But when this Nigerian journalist that reports for the German radio Deutsche Welle, when he asked what was thought of as an inconvenient question, he was shown out. Again, a difference there. And the naysayers did not appear to me, maybe I missed it, to rise with the same sort of uproar.
So it's lieutenants.
Okay, yeah, because I was listening to the comment by the media assistant to the president, that should be Ruben Abati, when he stated yesterday that the issue was being looked into and they are going to resolve it. I don't know whether we can really relate both issues and situate them within the same context.
Okay, let us come back and continue with this aspect and others. I've got to pause for a commercial break, but don't go anywhere, please. We'll be right back.
Okay.
Okay, then welcome back. And, you know, against all things transitions, what we're looking at. We have been doing so for about a week or more than that now. And the backdrop this time is the last Council of State meeting under President Goodluck Ebele Jonathan. And quite frankly, we're speculating on, you know, the different temperaments, characters, characterizations of the people. Their abilities, we're not speculating on that. That is a thing that we will see when the time comes.
Sure.
We have seen the abilities of President Goodluck Ebele Jonathan. In a democracy, it is the electorate that scores you, and the electorate has scored for whatever it is worth. So now we'll see how General Buhari will go. And the point has been made that expectations are high, very, very high. There's much of it that Buhari will, probably being an experienced Nigerian leader, will expect, will understand. But people are also saying that, look, it is Buhari's fourth attempt that he has finally clinched the prize. And they sort of are working out that every single one of those attempts, he must have had some sort of a game plan. So he's no springbok, no newcomer to this whole business.
Correct.
So people are expecting that he has a plan. And then the other thing that I noticed, that what you two, both you gentlemen have spoken about, is that in all his interviews, when certain kind of questions are asked, he has pointed out, and this goes back to the whole discipline platform that Buhari appears to be putting on the ground, he points out those that are really party decisions to make that are being asked of him. And he said, look, I can't tell you really, you can't ask that question. It's not fair to ask that question because this is something that it's a policy, and this is something that the party would talk about. Now, party won, but he is the president.
Of course.
When the time comes, we're talking into the future now. When he is the president.
To be honest, in Africa, maturity is necessary for effective leadership and governance. That's just something I have noticed. If you look at Buhari, honestly, Buhari is bringing in maturity and experience. And Buhari, in the context of Africa, is a mini Abraham Lincoln. Buhari truly demonstrated that persistence, holding on helps. And that is why between you and me, or between me and fellow Nigerians, that's why I'm a little bit disappointed in the internal crisis I'm hearing going on within PDP. And I said, PDP, you've been in power for like 16 years. Just because you lost and you want to bring down all your structures, fighting yourselves, what will you say about the oppositions that have been there waiting for 16 years? That level of patience is something you need to have imbibed.
You know, it's interesting you point out that, okay, you wanted to add something.
Instead of you going to be a very strong opposition
yes,
to put this government on its toes, to deliver the dividends of good governance, you are just balkanizing yourselves.
Well, indeed. And one wonders,
strange.
But then again, one wonders how much of it is as bad as it is being reported. In recent times, the report has begun to come out about how, I think I saw one report yesterday about Tinubu being put in his place vis-a-vis the whole structure. So you begin to look and say, hello, hang on, where is all of this coming from?
Exactly.
What, you know, these are clearly, if you ask me, you know, sort of plants,
Sure.
you know, plants by naysayers, perhaps part of the whole hate speech.
Exactly.
But
now, with regards to his comments on PDP, on a serious note, I don't think it was unexpected. You see, PDP.
But how can we get a strong opposition?
No. I'll get to that point. PDP, for a long time, since 1999, have been like an over-pampered baby. It never had faced opposition. Is it in moments of travails, it's those that have weathered the storms of struggle that actually shows themselves to be resilient. PDP had never had that experience. And it's in this sense you see the opposition parties. And to a reasonable extent, you can pick out one thing about the Ashwaju and Buhari as depicting, you know, scions of resilience and persistence in the face of opposition. In the case of the Ashwaju, if you go into the history of ACN, I think he started with just Lagos State. And he waded his way through.
that is going back to, even going back to AD.
AD.
You can take it back to AD.
Fantastic, to where we are today. And Buhari, our future president any moment from now, just like the soldier he was, though we say that he's a converted Democrat, I'll make one or two comments on that later, have been a battle-weary soldier and is very much comfortable with opposition.
And has a never-say-die attitude.
A never-say-die attitude and life pattern.
That's why I say he's out.
So, where it has to do with the coming together of the opposition in the way and manner they did, you don't expect the same attitude from PDP that had never
suffered
opposed.
any kind of
So
it's like PDP it was born, as it were, using the analogy of a child of a rich kid.
Yes,
a rich
silver
kid.
spoon.
Silver spoon.
Exactly.
Never knew what it was to quote unquote work for what they would
exactly.
You know, just using the analogy.
That's just the reality.
Yes.
And now they have to scatter.
Now,
come
all of that, you're out, you know, for the time being. Depending when the electorate sees differently. But for now, the electorate has said, you're out. It can be something of a shock.
It's like a culture shock to them.
A culture shock.
So that is exactly what you are seeing over time, but you don't
So
write it.
What's going to happen? Where is it going to come? Where is the next meal going to come from? You know, that is the analogy of the wealthy kid who has never known hunger a day in his life.
And I totally agree with Doctor, because we had some discussion a few days ago, and somebody said, but, you know, I don't want to say pessimist, but some people said, do you know that the fusion of even the Buhari, the this, the that, the APC, the CPC, the mini ABGA, do you think that marriage is going to stand? And that was what some of us said. You learn from history. Defeat helps sometimes. Because you're talking about a Tinubu or a Jagaban, like he said, that started with just Lagos. Right? And with that culture and attitude of a progressive, coming up now to mix with somebody like a Buhari, a CPC, a mini Abraham Lincoln, with probably the mentality of conservative, you know, but coming together, it simply means at some point, these people felt you have your ideology of a conservative, I have mind of progressives, but we still need to synchronize this thing to dislodge a big body called PDP.
So we come back to your physics and resonance.
Exactly.
I will come back to your physics and resonance so that we now produce one tone,
so they were able
with which
to,
we can,
exactly.
and if you, depending on how you modulate it, you can actually break a glass with a tone.
You did that because that was what they did.
Yes. One moment, please, because Prince Wyeth has come on the line, and I don't want to miss him. He wants to join this conversation. Good morning, Prince Wyeth.
Uncle Yori.
Good morning, sir.
I'm still this lucky now. I got yesterday and today as well. You see, the Saka, good morning to you. And the other
morning, sir.
Dr. Agugua.
If I had your doctor very well, he said the time we have Jonathan is the best time to have him. But I disagree. Why pressure on Buhari today? People, because things is not working accordingly. Why? As I'm talking to you today, the megawatt in Nigeria today is below 3,000 megawatts. Where John Babasoja, they were talking of 10,000 megawatts. Now, that's number one. Number two, insecurity in this country. That's why we are doing pressure to incoming government. As I'm talking to you today, so I bought it 200 naira yesterday at black market. When you get a station, it is 120 or 130. That is the pressure for the new government to tackle. Number three, our naira today is around 220. So what do not tell? And the local government in this country is not system today. It's a President Jonathan's government. When they enter this government, the crude oil system sold at 110.19 a barrel. It is just 4 months or 5 months ago before this is dug down. Why? When you are making money, do you save? As this government is winding up right now, how much do they have in external reserve? And they are, when I say they are very lucky, where do they, in fact, let me stop here because that's
Thank you. Thank you. There's so very much. Thank you very much, Prince Wyeth.
In fact, I will say something about these expectations because we really need to talk about one or two economic expectations for Nigeria. But like we were talking about this fusion, of the progressive and the conservative. So what we noticed, that was why we agreed that there is a, like you said, the resonance of ideology for the good of Nigerians. Because when they came, the first thing they discovered was they needed the population force so that they can dislodge the central government. And they needed that. But within themselves, they were also asking themselves, we are likely to have issues. People may question us in terms of religion, in terms of sectionalism, in terms of this. How do we synchronize? It's like they thought of all these things. They brought them together, and that was why you could see a Buhari will come from the north, a Jagaban from this way. They had an Okorocha from south. They had an Amech. Somehow, somewhere, the chemistry worked.
Now, that chemistry, Augustine, is expected, the same chemistry that brought together what might have been thought of as disparate forces, now brought them into a unified whole to achieve a particular objective. I don't know why the naysayers are not seeing that this is the same kind of cohesion that is going to be brought to bear for the real job. After all, the election itself is not the end. It was just a means to an end, which is a change in Nigeria.
And that is the point at which we might need to really take a warning signal. Because when we are expecting so much.
Could I just include Mr. Oyede in this, and then I'll come straight back to you to address the point. Good morning, Mr. Oyede. So, well, we lost it. Yeah. This same cohesion, why are people not leveraging on the cohesion that brought together as apparently disparate a group of forces, as you know the case to be? That is what will now solve the knotty Nigerian problems once Buhari sits behind his desk.
Yeah, and like I was trying to make out, an observation that I hope, just like as it happened in the case of the Roman Empire, where when the forces of Antony and co joined together going to face Pompey, said that let these factors that are now formed the basis of our unity not turn out to be the drums that will batter our fortress.
That is that is one thing that the naysayers are really highlighting.
Yes, and it's good APC as a party should be on the watch out. And to a reasonable extent, no matter whatever misgivings people might have, whether they voted for Buhari or voted against him, no person has questioned his personality disposition, as it has to do with strong character, focus, and discipline. This is where what you call the great man theory comes in, because what, to a reasonable extent, happened to PDP as a party was that at a point the party was unwieldy and rudderless, as it has to do with a very strong hold coming from.
And arguably lost focus.
They lost focus. That is the basis of the unwieldiness. So if we have this as a problem coming from PDP, it now becomes one of the challenges General Buhari must really need to tackle.
Let's try Mr. Oyede again. I think he's back. Good morning, sir. It looks like Mr. Oyede is not destined to join this conversation today. See if you can, maybe third time lucky. We've just been talking about Buhari making it on the 4th attempt. So you've just made your 2nd attempt. Let's see, let's see how it will go.
So it's to that extent we can now understand that with his strong personality, let him now forge this seemingly Sarah-like group of conglomerates into a unified whole.
Indeed.
Without which it can really be a problem for them to contend with in future.
And he would seem to have indicated that he will be working quite closely with his party.
Correct.
You know, he apparently has indicated as much.
It's very clear they will just work together because they have known that what they are trying to achieve actually is what we call the concept of unity in diversity. You know, they have been given the powers. Nigeria, as Nigerians, we have handed our economic, social, and political destiny into their custody for the next 4 years. What they need now, like we keep saying, is to have good lieutenants or technocrats. And a typical example of technocrats, I mean, is this. Supposing, say, you need somebody that will come and do something about waste disposal in Nigeria, right? Regardless of political party, the part of the country that person comes from, maybe to do something about waste disposal, you are looking for a toxicologist. A toxicologist is somebody you need to sit down. He needs to analyze how you need to recycle things. He needs to analyze to you how to take care of aromatics, right? So, and the same way,
that is not somewhere you now begin to bring other principles, some of those important principles we have to deal with in the country, whether federal character, whether, now we have to look at competence in certain areas.
Exactly.
So it must be competency.
Competency first.
Can I come back to you to continue with the point, because Evelyn is waiting to join the conversation. Good morning, Evelyn.
Good morning, sir.
Please go ahead, ma'am.
All right, thank you so much. My question actually is based on the general atmosphere that you can see on the streets. I want to know, because a lot of these issues that are being trashed, you know, to the common man out there, may not really make much sense. How do we get into the picture to begin to understand the reality on ground as to when do we begin to see concrete changes as it affects the people on the street? You know, Uncle Yorimos, I don't know if you've actually been out there recently. The atmosphere is tense. People are having it really hard. You know, because when we see people in the studios, I mean, you don't look like the regular people that we see on the street.
And you can speak about these people. Me, I'm a regular people.
Coming from the street myself.
No, Evelyn is still...
When do I begin to see change?
Okay.
There is no fuel. There is no electricity. We know that the new incoming government actually means well. Please take us through the program. When do we begin to feel the impact as we are right now? Thank you so very much.
Thank you very much, Evelyn, but let me quickly make a clarification. You said you people sitting there in the studio, you don't look like you walk the streets. Well, me, I'm extricating myself. Maybe these people here.
In fact,
because I can feel her pain. I know what she's talking about.
That is probably the best question probably we are going to have for till the end of this year. The reason why I'm saying so is the same question Evelyn asked one day. There was a time I was in the hospital. teaching hospital, and I asked a medical doctor, a female, I said, do you experience what we are actually experiencing as a medical? She said, Mr. Zaka, I am exposed to all the
All
problems
of the challenges you are
I'm suffering
having.
from house rent problem, I'm suffering from mosquitoes, I'm suffering from fuel scarcity and the rest.
So it's a very serious question
No,
that
it's a
Evelyn
very-
poses. Now, we're going to take a break, and then, because actually I've overrun, I should have taken a commercial break. We'll come back and look at Evelyn's question even more. Stay with us, please. Okay, welcome back. Let's look at Evelyn's question. And it's a question we've asked before, but then Evelyn is, accentuating, underlining the matter.
Sure.
When can we reasonably expect to begin to notice some changes in my situation? Maybe I'll come back to you. Let me hear from you, Augustine.
Yeah.
What do you think is a reasonable waiting period while work is being done before we can say this is no more the way it was
Before.
before?
And I think at this point, we might really need to take a little cue from the observation made by General Muhammad Buhari some time ago, that Nigerians should not expect him to perform a miracle, that he's not a miracle worker. Neither will he be a magician. Yes. You see, the problem of Nigeria is not something that you can really pencil down in the past 1, 2, or 3 decades. It's been something that has been ongoing. And it will be very, very irresponsible of me at this point to say that the outgoing regime did not really achieve anything. No, nothing is ever too sacrosanct as it has to do with performance in excellence, not terribly wasteful to the extent of saying that they did not achieve anything.
Okay, but one moment, please. Can you help me, please, Augustine? People who are expecting a change, they're quite expectant.
Sure.
And I don't know, they're not too interested in hearing about, well, this has been going on for 3 decades,
Yeah.
and so people are going to have to be patient. People are saying, wait a minute, what is this you are telling me now?
Yeah.
I brought you in to effect a change.
Sure.
Now you're telling me to be to chill?
In every situation, we must actually take into consideration the issue of gestation period.
Okay.
General Muhammad Buhari, in the next few weeks, is coming to take on challenges that has to do with electricity, that has to do with employment.
Let me interrupt you, and I beg your pardon for doing so. But I think I understand where you're going when you talk about a gestation period. No matter how impatient you are for a baby,
Sure.
you are limited by 9
9
months
months.
gestation period.
Fantastic.
So I understand that principle. Victory from Yaba, thank you very much for holding on all that while.
Good morning, Buhari.
Good morning, sir.
Good morning to Mr. Bala and Dr. Agugwa, respectively.
Morning, brother.
Honestly, I quite understand the perspective at which you are looking at GMV's antecedents from. Most especially Dr. Agugwa's analysis, which truly point out the Nigerian leadership style over decades. However, we should understand that the same personality, except for few, are still the same set of politicians, still on the same political platform.
Sure.
And it is only after with someone with good ideology that spells out a national repair, if sincerely sincere. My happiness was this, Uncle Yori. The guest you have in the studio yesterday, one Dr. Idoko, Nick
Yes.
Ndoko,
Yes.
talks about the value system, which give birth to tax payment and some other factors. That needs to be addressed, and I just hope Buhari will be able to address that. Moreover, I personally believe that the post-election era has a lot to unfold with time. I just hope God will grant General Buhari the strength and the zeal to be able to carry the mantle of leadership. God bless you.
Amen. Thank you very much, and indeed very well put. As I said, I apologize for interrupting you, but
no,
I couldn't
it's
keep
okay.
him
It's
waiting.
a very good contribution,
Yes.
and we really take it off from there. You know, definitely we must really give him some time to settle down.
Okay.
We won't expect
And
him to be a magician.
And so people are going to have
but
to
the
understand.
truth about it is
we're talking
that-
about the gestation period
Yes.
that you can't escape.
But it should not also be too long.
Aha.
That's why I say that we can't just throw overboard the fact that this outgoing government had done nothing. There are things on the ground which with a little streak of dynamism, you can straighten out and start seeing results.
So
because I will give you one
Buhari
practical.
administration is going to have to be quite heavy, quite heavy on communication. People
Principally.
have to know what's going on.
Yeah.
So transparency and then communication.
Yeah, it's very important. And it's just like our colleague actually stated there. Also.
Oh, victory.
Yes. In as much as we are actually giving him that leverage, there is this period of trying to more, arrange things and put them in their proper perspectives. You see, when we are talking about party leadership and all whatnot, I really want to draw something from that angle. President Buhari, when he comes on board, should be able to live above party cleavages. Just like what I heard my Tamasule say to him last time, he should see himself as the president of Nigeria, not necessarily of the North. Talk less of being APC. If he maintains that stand as it goes with his personality disposition, I think he will do well.
Okay, as we wind down now, Abala, the gestation period is going to exist.
Yes, sure. Quickly and practically, right? The problem we have today is problem of power and what? Petroleum products to move around. You have the option of buying pure water or sachet water or bottled water, but you cannot do anything about fuel to run your automobiles or generator. During the time of Jonathan, and that's why I'm happy this government, this incoming government is open to advice. During the time of Jonathan, when they wanted to remove that subsidy, they promised pilot refineries. They started getting things wrong when they were given that benefit of doubt and they canceled that project. If you look at it, the reason
they
why...
frittered away the goodwill.
Exactly. The reason why we are having serious problem with these shortages is not that the marketers cannot give gestation, cannot be patient with the government, but because they are of the feeling that since there was this rumor that government actually borrowed money to pay for this subsidy, they are now scared that there is liquidity and solvency problem with the government, and that's why they want
and
everything.
Buhari might not be okay with it when it comes in.
Exactly, and they wanted that. And moving forward quickly,
because as Evelyn said, how long
exactly,
people don't want to wait forever.
Just that point I want to address. Quickly, let me tell you, we must do something about this subsidy. Internal refining is going to be the key, and nobody should deceive us that if we want to have local refineries, then we should sell to our local refineries at international price. If you do that, you can never help the growth of the local industries. Then secondly, once you start internal refining, have rail lines so that you can decongest Lagos. We don't need tankers from Kauranamoda
all of them
and coming to Lagos.
Well,
decongest them and have good distribution network and logistics.
Thank you very much, Bala Zaka, public affairs analyst and oil and gas expert. And also thank you, Dr. Augustine Agugua, Department of Sociology, University of Lagos. We don't have the time. We'd like to continue this conversation. We always do. Tomorrow, Dr. Aruwa Joy will be in the seat. I am Yori Folarin. See you again. Bye-bye now.